Welcome to the first episode of Lynette. I'm Lynette Jackson, host of an exciting new show of hope, strength, and encouragement. Have you ever had the feelings of being empty or hollow? Have you ever had the blues or experienced depression? Have you ever said to yourself, if one more thing happens to me, I'm just going to snap? On today's show, we want to give you some answers to some questions that will help fill the void in your life in hopes to getting you back to being your best self. All this and more next on Lynette. Last year, I wrote a book called Hollow, When Everything That Means Anything is Taken Away. Hollow chronicles a very dark time in my life in which my mother asked me to help her prepare to die. During that time, we planned her funeral, we picked her coffin, we did the program, we did everything. I was a mess. I was just spiraling out of control. Why? Because my best friend was in the next room dying. I can recall taking naps during the middle of the day and realizing that when I would go back into the room to see my mother, I would see a little less life. During this time, I used alcohol and even prescription painkillers to cope with losing my best friend. After my mother passed in 2005, I took a job with a company that I really wanted to work for. I lost that job in 4 months. During that time, my nephew died of cancer at the age of 36, and 2 months after that, I removed a sister from life support, all within 18 months. Boy, was I hollow inside. I experienced depression and even thoughts of suicide. I asked God if He would help me tell my story, if He would just help me change the life of one person with my story, then everything that I went through would not be in vain. It would all be worth it. He helped me tell my story, and now I want you to tell your story. In a minute, we're going to take you to the streets. Now that's the social media streets and sometimes even the literal streets. Today we're going to go to the social media streets in which we posed a question, the blues versus depression, and if you've experienced either one, what you did to get through it. Let's take it to the streets. Annette says the difference is time. The blues is acute, but depression is somewhat chronic. Very interesting point. Let's see what Kendall has to say. She has something very interesting to say. Kendall says, I've had bouts with both, and my blues usually subsides after some prayer, praise, and meditation, especially if I'm praising with some good gospel music. Kendall, I'm so glad you said that because that's how I got through depression, with some good gospel music. We're going to read one more. One from Alberta. Alberta says, the blues is a temporary feeling. It goes away after a short period of time. Usually a talk with a trusted, concerned family member or friend can chase the blues away. Depression is a more serious condition that needs the attention of a physician. That's a great segue to our next segment called Kitchen Table Advice. Joining us today at the kitchen table is Antwan Mills. Now I'm going to read this to make sure that I get this correctly and put my glasses on. Antwan Mills is the owner of Full Circle Fitness, harmonizing body, mind, spirit, and emotions. And I love the tagline that you have here, it's because you are worth it. He's a life coach, he's a certified personal trainer, and he's also my friend. Welcome, Antwan.
Thank you for having me.
We posed a question out on Facebook.
Okay.
What's the difference between the blues and depression?
From my take, the blues and depression are not necessarily two separate things. They are varying degrees or aspects of the same thing. When we look at the blues from let's say from a physical standpoint, we think in terms of acute and chronic. The blues would be more acute. It would be a short-term thing. It would be something that comes and goes. That ebbs and flows very quickly. When we look at depression, it's more long-standing, it's more long-term. It can go on over a greater span of time. And so if we look at it in terms of a cycle of life, there are natural ebbs and flows. The tide comes in, the tide goes out, the sun rises, the sun sets. Well, if we understand that about life, then the blues don't affect us as significantly as oftentimes we allow them, because we understand that it's a natural flow of life. Things come in, things go out, the tide rises, the tide falls, we win some, we lose some. All these things are examples of the natural cycles of life.
So what you're saying to me, I want to get this clear, is you're saying that experiencing the blues or depression is a natural part of life.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. There was an ebb and flow, but it also oftentimes has left behind more life.
During the death of my mother, it took me a while to kind of come out of that depression because I felt like I was losing. But what I did was I focused on her death or the end of her life. And I think that if my mom, my sister, my nephew could see now that I was in that moment of depression and I couldn't get out, that wouldn't have been the best that they would have hoped for me. So I should have been focusing on the blessings, the memories that she left behind versus focusing on what I'm going to refer to that you always talk about, the spot that is not.
Absolutely.
And I love that analogy because what you've taught me and talked to me about was don't focus on just the little patch of grass that may not be growing right now, but lift your head up, breathe, and look out at the horizon and look at all the green grass that's there. So talk a little bit about the spot that is not.
Well, the spot that's not refers to our tendency to focus on what's missing, not being good enough, not having enough, not having enough money, not having enough education, not having the right connections, the right resources, not having a home, not having a car, not having kids. So when we focus on that, one of the things that we absolutely know is that we get more of anything that we focus on. So if you're focusing on what's not, you're naturally going to get in the cycle of life what's not.
Negative. Give us some examples of how people can think, how we can get out of, because I know, if we're talking about depression or the blues, and many people have suffered with both, to different degrees. But I want this show to be a show of hope. I want this show to be a show where people can get answers and that they can apply them. So talk about some things that we can do to get out of depression. When I come train with you sometimes, I complain a lot. I complain a lot. And you always come back with positive answers to me. I'll say, well, I don't want to do this. And you'll say, thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm like, well, okay, Antwan, I don't want to do this. You're like, okay, great. You've done a great job anyway. You always come back with positive. But talk about some positive things that we can do.
Well, one of the things that we talk about a lot in our training is that you are always in control.
Yes.
You're always.
Even though I don't want to hear it.
Absolutely. You are always in control no matter what the situation is. And I often talk to you about breathing. And so one of the very first things that we can do, especially in a situation where we are confused, where we're feeling misunderstood, where we are not quite pulling things together, where they're just not quite fitting together, is to start breathing. anything that gets us breathing will help us start to shift that mindset and that focus. There's there's a chemical change that happens in the body. Endorphins get released when we breathe. So that's one of the very first things that I would have you do, is why I would have you lay down and meditate before going into your day. And so being able to take deep breaths. So many times we go through life inhaling and exhaling, just taking in air, but we are not really breathing, learning really how to breathe, how to inhale deeply into the lungs, expanding the diaphragm, and then exhaling that out. Another thing that we can do, I think I heard on one of your segments earlier, someone said they love gospel music.
Yes.
They listen to great music. Well, what does, whether it's gospel, whether it's country, no matter the genre, what does music, good music, typically tend to make us do? It gets us to move.
That's true.
It's very difficult for us to hear really good music.
That's so
our
true.
favorite song, and not begin to move. And so one of the things that I like to say, we've talked about, is that motion brings about emotion. When you're feeling the blues, when you're feeling down, when you're not feeling like doing much, find something that gets you moving. Now, for some people, it might be going out taking a walk. We've done that.
Right.
For some people, it might be, like in my case, I love working out. When I'm feeling the blues, one of the things I do to shake the blues is to actually work out, to get moving. For someone else, it might be dancing. So I prescribe this as a life coaching moment. When you're feeling the blues, when you're tired, when you're just not quite all there, put on your favorite song. Get in the middle of your living room and dance. Dance like nobody's watching.
I just want to thank you for coming today. I feel so honored to have you with me. You're a life coach for me, but you're also my friend. And I'm so honored to have you join me on the very first episode of this new show that we're doing that's empowering people, that's encouraging people, and giving people strength. So thank you so much, my friend Antwan,
Absolutely.
for coming to the show today. We really appreciate it. I want to just say in my final thoughts today, we are calling this segment of the show Kitchen Table Advice. Now, what happens at the kitchen table? When I was a child, I'm the youngest of 7 children, and we had a responsibility at the kitchen table. Someone was supposed to set the table and put the placemats down and put the glasses down while we prepared for a meal. We always had a meal on Sunday, and it was our time as a family to come together collectively and talk about the week and talk about what's going on in life. Kitchen Table Advice on the Lynette Show is a call to action. We want to ask you to come back to the kitchen table. Technology has afforded us an opportunity to talk to each other without looking at each other. You miss so many emotions when you don't look into my eyes, and I can't really tell what you're thinking by looking in your face. It's important now that we lay down the phones, lay down the emails, and let's get back to the kitchen table. When you go to your kitchen table, we want to be able to provide advice for you and topics for you to discuss. We're just asking you to log on to our website, talk to us, hit me on Twitter, post something on Facebook and tell me, Lynette, I have gone back to the kitchen table. We're taking some of the advice that you've provided from your kitchen table, and we're talking about it. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the very first episode of Lynette. I hope that you'll come back and visit with us real soon. And until we meet again, remember to just breathe. We'll see you next time. Next time on Lynette. I just want to go back to control. What does that really mean? Because I had difficulty. Personally, I had difficulty because we have been told, I'm a single parent, I'm a single mother, I'm a single woman, and I've had people always, saying, well, you shouldn't be so in control. I am in control of my destiny and my purpose in life, but, what does that really mean, being in control? Talk to us about being in control. What does it really mean? Okay, well, you as well, my basic philosophy is there are 4 different degrees of us is in terms of human beings: mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And that at any given point in time, movement on one of those creates movement on the others. So when I say that we are always in control, you are in control of your physical body. We have the ability to change the course of any non-preferenced
action or thought that we have.